What is going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to the 817 podcast, where we talk about the lovely city of Fort Worth, Texas. We get into politics, business, culture, news. If it impacts you as a Fort Worthian, we discuss it. We give you one big story, 3 short stories, wins, losses, and actions. And I'm wearing the same clothes. We are all wearing the same clothes as the last episode where I had that intro.
Yeah, that last big story ended up being way bigger than expected. There was so much good stuff to get to.
Katie was too good.
Yeah, I think we have had so many people come to us and ask about the Fort Worth Way, and many people have stumbled across the article that Katie wrote 30 years ago. And, you know, I've reached out to her on numerous occasions and asked if she was interested in writing a whole new article, kind of updating the Fort Worth Way. But I think this was just as good, if not better, to have her here live and in person to talk about that article and to talk about kind of what's going on in Fort Worth today.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I thought that was so awesome. And East Side energy, I love that. That, like, warmed my heart.
This always surprises me when people that I know don't know each other. I'm like, how could these people have not run into each other? You know, those Fort Worth stories where people are just so small town, even though it's huge. Yeah. And then certain people just haven't run across each other yet.
Just living blocks apart.
And what's crazy is this second episode is happening because of the motivation of Wesley Kirk here.
You and I were ready to go home.
We're like, oh, that was great. Let's leave.
I want to go home too. I have to edit this. But yeah,
I know we tried really hard to put a bunch of wins and losses for all the news that came in this week. And we thought maybe we could tack that on to the end of the big episode of interviewing Katie. But clearly, as we tried to navigate through all of those short stories, which we thought we could make wins and losses, we determined that we needed a whole another episode.
This is the real curse of having a news-based podcast, is the news never stops. It's so annoying. All these big stories.
And our mayor decides to do this big puff piece on this big establishment, Fort Worth Magazine, talking about her thick skin and, you know, this activist stunts that the people of Fort Worth are doing. Did you guys read that Fort Worth Magazine article?
Yes. You're going to go first, Wesley? Yes, I read that article. I couldn't determine whether it was like an article or whether it was the author's opinion.
It was
because it comes across very much as an opinion piece.
Yeah, it just isn't labeled that way.
But
and it's just a drunk white man, it sounded like, just arguing about stuff.
It was so truly baffling when I was reading it. First off, the headline is hysterically ironic. Like, says, mayor's chair not for the thin-skinned, when I don't remember Betsy Price being this thin-skinned.
And the title continues to go, between activist stunts and council controversies, Mayor Mattie Parker demonstrates that city leadership demands grit, patience, and a steady hand. And then it's a picture
none of those
her.
things are how I would describe Mattie Parker, so that was weird too.
And then you had the podcasts, the 2 podcasts that she did. Mm-hmm. She did the one with Leppert. He used to be the mayor of Dallas. He was the last Republican mayor of Dallas, elected Republican mayor of Dallas. So one bonus I thought was good for Mattie Parker. It seems like she has a mentor because she will be the last Republican mayor of Fort Worth. So, like, I thought that was a good thing.
Well, in the very first paragraph, that he's ranting about how these public comments that have been being made justify the reduction in public comment.
That makes absolutely no sense. In fact, it's
gross.
There's more public comment because they're attempting to diminish people's voices. The outrage is what's sparking people showing up and coming out to speak. And
I think the anchor of this big story is this ridiculous Fort Worth Magazine story, but there's just been a slew on top of her getting establishment to speak at public comments. Mm-hmm. Now she's getting establishment media to, like, put her in a good light. And both the 2 podcasts that she's been on this month, she talks about how social media is harming and creating more harm for the situation and making things worse for her. And then you have that article, like, right after the casket, where Ryan Rusak did about, we don't have a right to be upset at her about the casket thing. So she is, like, clearly, like, Fort Worth. And again, regardless if it's all Mattie, right? Like, I think Pete Guerin cares about the city council being, like, normal and cordial. So he's trying to, like, show calmness at the council. And I think some people care about Mattie's image to push her to go do this stuff if it isn't her directly. And last week we talked about the Texas Tribune article where she sat down and talked to the editor there. And I think this story is just, as we get into the short stories, is that she's trying to look good in moments when there's actually topics that we are having a crisis. If it's from education and it's Fort Worth shut down, if it's from her trying to act like we have this like medical innovation thing that's going to be helpful to us, yet she doesn't say anything about the abortion laws that started in Texas in 2021 and the rise of deaths because of that. And then you also have like the county and the lack of this like economic crisis around food and like not saying anything about that. And so she continues to not actually hold anybody accountable on her side of the party, but yet she keeps showing up to the public as if the people are wrong. And that is like, to me, like poor leadership.
I think it's the thing that irks me is that a lot of these harms were caused by the people who've been in charge for the last 30 years. And now that the people are showing up and saying, we don't want to be harmed this way anymore, it's, whoa, but you're not going about this the right way. You need to come and talk to us in the right places at the right time and be cordial and share with us your opinion and bring us the data. But if you show up in these other ways, you are called, activist shenanigans and just disparaged. And as someone who sat through a whole lot of public comments where sometimes it seemed like people might be a little off their rocker, almost every single person who came multiple times would eventually land on something that the city should be paying attention to. So to disparage and diminish and try to, gaslight people who choose to communicate in this way is just the most frustrating part of it to me.
I mean, this back half of this article, it's
wild.
Parker has been a friend to minority communities in her 2+ terms, centering much of her work on uplifting the historically underserved through economic and workforce development initiatives. She was a strong supporter of major urban renewal projects, including the Stop 6 and Evans-Rosedale revitalization. Her maternal and infant health care initiative specifically targeted zip codes with the worst outcomes, predominantly a minority population. Before and since she was elected in 2021, she has insisted on education and career pathways to help underrepresented children escape cycles of poverty and making that a priority. Through an initiative called Good Natured, she has worked on ensuring all residents, especially in historically forgotten areas, have access to quality parks and green space. You got to really want the job of mayor. If the activists really wanted to punish her, they insist she return for another term in 2027.
Well, wait,
what does that even mean?
Well, also, you have to really want the job. Does she? How?
Yes.
She's also the head of Cook's Children's. That also should be a full-time job. Each of those jobs should be 80-hour-a-week jobs. You can't do both of them at the same time and do them well.
And so, she got the Cook's Children job because she wasn't sure if she was going to do it this time because of the financial situation of running for mayor. And so I'm just right. This is like,
and I don't think activists are trying to punish anybody. We're trying, the people who are showing up with, not everybody claims the activist label, but the people who are showing up are just trying to elevate issues that they think the city should take a different tact with.
Calling me an activist is like calling me a voter. I'm just doing my civic duty.
Yeah. There you go.
And that's how everyone should look at society.
Yes.
And I think what's crazy is that our mayor's doing this month at the same time Zoran Mandami wins New York. He goes up and he looks in the camera and he tells the president of the United States to turn up the volume. And then the next thing that happens is he's in the White House and the Trump president is glazing over him, looking at him with starry eyes. How is he looking at Mandami more heroic than his own Republican mayor, Mattie Parker? You know why? Because Zoran Mandami actually stood for his people and built power, where instead Mayor Mattie Parker's just sitting in the middle, and if she would have stood up for her people, maybe the bully would actually respect you. That's what you do when there's a bully. You go up into the lunch, you walk up to the biggest, baddest one, and you punch him in the nose. And that is what she's like, I'm going to not do that and be mad at the people who wants to stop being bullied by him. We are here at DEI or with Patrice Jones or public comments because Project 2025 has been entered in the year of 2025, and you're trying to call us, radicals because that is what we're asking for. If we remember before Trump, Bernie Sanders was asking for universal health care. Andrew Wang was like, maybe we should consider UBI. The only thing we're asking for is public comments and to keep diversity, equity, inclusion. 2025 is nowhere near more progressive than pre-Donald Trump. MAGA has done its job where Fort Worthians asking for public comments creates magazine articles like this.
And a lot of the things that we'd be asking for are things that would make their jobs easier because they would be then delivering to the people the things that make life better for the people. And then they would have a lot of accolades for doing that well.
This is the exact conversation I have with so many city staff constantly, is that they're so afraid of the public because the public is so angry. And the public is angry because they're not treated with respect or transparent processes or equitable processes. And so it just, all this anger builds and builds until the city is required to give them an opportunity to speak, and then it all just comes flooding out. Whereas if they just were more transparent and proactive and involved the community from the beginning, like we were talking about with how to solve the Fort Worth way, then a lot of that anger just dissipates. And people are, when you see community as part of the solution and not as part of the problem, it's funny how things just happen to get easier then.
So basically speaking to that point that you said about how city staff is often sent into the public and runs up against a buzzsaw of the public being upset and angry, I think a thing that plays into that a whole awful lot is that we have had this reduction of public comment and the ability for citizens to be heard at the local government level, either that at city council or at the commissioner's court. And the Fort Worth Report just put out an article today, I believe, that talks about Tarrant residents get fewer chances to speak at local government meetings, and what does that mean? And this is a really comprehensive article that goes into detail about how we arrived at where we are today. And that is with this overall reduction of opportunities for public engagement at both of these governmental levels. And in our opinion, it's a bad place to be. And I think this article backs that up because it talks about the fact that while legally they're not required to have these just general public comment meetings, it is best practices.
Yes.
And it does give people the ability to bring forward the concerns that they have and not necessarily do the job of city staff, but bring forward the concerns so that then city staff and elected officials can figure out ways to address those problems and make life better for the citizens of Fort Worth.
But that was the terrifying part of the article, is that there's no legal consequence. They could, if Mattie Parker was like Tim O'Hare and really wanted to go all the way to zero, I mean, there's really no legal fight to that. And that's scary. That should be more in our laws as a state, because
as a democracy.
Yeah, as a democracy. If let's say Mattie Parker said something, let's just say was founded to say the word racist out loud on video, and a bunch of people wanted to come say something, but now you got zero because there's not a agenda item for it.
Yeah, because it's legally required to have comment if it's on the agenda. But then all you have to do is make sure nothing on the agenda ever makes it there that you would expect comment from.
Yeah. And then
like you said, if an emergency comes up, you can't go have one-on-ones. That was one of the solutions that some of these electeds gave during this discussion about whether to cut public comment is, you can just make an appointment and have a more meaningful, long conversation with me. Yeah. But your experience has been...
Exactly. Like those appointments, you have to schedule them months out and you have to do them one at a time. And also, it's at their prerogative whether they give you a meeting or not.
Yeah.
So...
But another great example could have been what if, back when Kerry Moon was going through all this crap, what if he would have done something actually really bad when he was, drinking and driving, and but you can't go yell at him because it wasn't on the docket. That's dangerous stuff. You can't keep your leaders accountable on their behaviors and actions if you don't have public comments.
And then the other thing that they're criticizing people about is using social media to share what they say when they go to public comment, as if this is a bad thing.
Yeah.
This is just us doing your job for you. I mean, these are
Getting
the things
the word out about what's happening in the city.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Well, Mattie Parker's done this, and the Republican council members have acted as if people are only coming to public comment for clout, to post on social media. And that's not what's happening at all. We just want the city to be better. We want to hold people accountable. We want to bring issues to light. We want to be able to do it all at the same time, rather than having to send a letter, an email, or a phone call to each of these city council members that there's no guarantee that they acknowledged any of it. at public comment, you have 3 minutes of their time where they all have to hear you. Whether they listen is a different thing, but it's city council, it's city leaders, it's city staff. Everyone is getting all of the same information at the same time. It's the easiest way to make a big difference in making sure that your voice is being heard.
Yeah, when you send an email, 9 times out of 10, I don't even get a response saying that the email has been received, that the letter has been received. And it doesn't impact anybody else. I mean, when I send a letter from our board, it's sent to the mayor and the entire council and the relevant staff people. And sometimes I get an auto reply thanking me. Sometimes I get a personal reply thanking me. But by no means do I hear back from all of them. Mm-hmm. But if I'm at the dais in front of them, I know that everybody that's in attendance is at least hearing, mm-hmm. and like you said, maybe not listening so well. But there also has been a reduction in the times that the people on the dais point to the staff that could help a person who is coming up with an issue at one of those public comment meetings. Because in the past, that happened quite regularly. I know that Mayor Price definitely did that a lot. Mm-hmm. And we have not seen as much of that either, because I think they've gotten to the point where they just dismiss people who show up for public comment as if they're just haranguing and don't have any point to make.
Well, also when Betsy Price was there, was during regular meetings, so there was also the staff there. Because these public comment meetings are now siloed by themselves, so does everyone have to be there?
Half the time some of the council is missing from those meetings.
So Betsy Price was able to, you have that problem? Here's Parks and Rec. It's like, that's why public comments should probably be back in working meetings. That's true, because
those department heads and staff from those departments don't necessarily have to come to a public comment meeting, because a public comment meeting, there's not something on the agenda from that department. Mm-hmm. That's when they have to have somebody there.
And I know this is a part of the PR tour of Mayor Parker, and it's a shame that the person who's on a better PR tour is Michael Crane. I mean, Michael Crane looks so good in this article. He talks about how he's considering
how he's had a change of heart.
Look at that, he's like the Fort Worth Grinch. He's like the little heart grew, right? It's like amazing. Christmas is coming. And so like, that's like, to me, it's like, if he's signaling to the council, I am interested in this article. Mm-hmm. Where are you, Jeanette and Carlos? Yep. He is putting the training wheels on for you to finally start showing up for the people.
That's your 7 votes. That's all you need.
Yeah.
I guess when we came with some solutions, because this was one of the items that some of the people who've been showing up came with solutions. Chris Tackett showed up at the last meeting where he discussed the public comment and showed them graphs and data and all of that.
You can have more public comment and less meetings.
Right.
Solves every problem they have.
And we know he doesn't like showing up meetings, so he was on board. So that was perfect. But another thing, like wrapping this into the whole Mayor Parker PR tour, is on her PR tour, at a couple of her like podcast stops, or when people were asking her about, man, you're getting a lot of things at the council, the phrase that she's been using is the silent majority. And on the Intersections podcast with the former Leopard guy who's the Republican Dallas mayor, he was saying like, all those cities that fall for those ideology, values kind of policies, their cities are going downward. Businesses are leaving, population is declining. And she goes and says, well, I think the silent majority is getting tired of it and we'll vote. And I think like the pressing of what I think to me is how she says it when she talks about our stuff is that I don't know why these activists, or these people, I don't call it that we're just activists. I'm just doing my civic duty. Mm-hmm. I'm a voter and I go out and actively engage in my community. And so she is seeing all that and saying, oh, y'all keep doing that. You guys are looking bad because the silent majority of Fort Worth isn't about that.
Am I correct in thinking that the silent majority, the phrase, comes from conservative white supremacy like goals? I
don't know how much it is like directly white supremacy.
That's the only context I ever hear it in.
But I would look at it as in the sense of white supremacy in the lens of why Donald Trump has gotten elected and why we're in the situation we're in is because a lot of ignorant people who shouldn't say ignorant crap and used to be able to say ignorant crap are really mad. And so that silent group has elected MAGA into office. But is it the majority? No, the majority of Fort Worth is black, brown, progressive, queer. And so this whole silent majority thing is, she's so missing her moment. And it's just, and I don't know what she's trying to do. What is the PR move for? Because even that last sentence is like, the John writer dude from Fort Worth Magazine's like, yeah, y'all better keep going so she can be the mayor again. Like, I don't even know if that's what she wants to do.
It doesn't seem that way.
Yeah. So, well, let's go ahead and move into short stories, which will also show like other things we need to be watching and not allowing these PR tours to build a facade.
So our first short story is regarding the Texas Congressional redistricting chaos. And we're calling it chaos because even after listening to 3 podcasts yesterday and talking to my husband, who's an attorney, to try to figure out exactly where things stand, I'm still not quite sure I totally understand. But from my understanding, I think that those congressional maps were challenged in court, and a local court voted in the majority to say that they were not legal.
So these are the maps that Greg Abbott pushed through to gerrymander 5
Texas.
new Republican seats for Texas. Yeah.
And so they were saying those maps were not legal. And so that would mean we would go back to the maps from 2021.
The ones that were made using census data that were accurate.
Yes, but they also have been challenged because of racial gerrymandering as well.
Okay.
So that makes it even more confusing. Mm-hmm. But they were legal maps that have already been used in an election. Mm-hmm. And so now that has been appealed by the Attorney General to the U.S. Supreme Court. And they have gotten a response from the U.S. Supreme Court saying that they will look at it. And so I don't know legally what that means for what maps would be used in this upcoming primary, because I assume, and my understanding from the podcast I listened to, is that there is going to be a Supreme Court decision on what the lower court decided. And so they could agree with the lower court and throw out the 2025 maps, or they could say, nope, we don't agree with the lower court, and we're sticking with the 2025 maps.
And my understanding is that elections administrators all throughout Texas need to know now, because that changes what candidates are and aren't eligible based on where they live, because the maps have been moved around so much that it'll move candidates from one district to another.
And we're in the middle of filing right now.
Yes.
So filing started November 8th and ends on November 8th. So some of the podcasts I listened to suggested that in the past, when this happened, there was some map discussions and challenges to maps in 2011. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that could happen is they could push back, extend the time that people can file so that they can make sure that everybody knows which maps they're working under. And others have said, that you have to go back to the maps of 2021. So,
but if they extend the filing deadline, it's not like they're also moving the primary dates either.
Well, that was discussed on some of the podcasts that I listened to as well. But I think that the people that were being interviewed basically thought that was less likely that they would change the primary dates, but that they might just extend the filing period by a week to just have an extended amount of time so that people would know which maps they're filing under.
A week to figure out if you're running for a district that you know or a district that you know less well?
I'm just telling you, it is chaos. Chaos, I tell you.
Well, it's also important to know when California changed maps, people got the chance to vote on it.
Yeah, there's been some questioning about whether this is going to affect the California maps as well.
Okay.
And the reason given is that here, the people didn't get to vote on it. In California, the people did get to vote on it. So that's apples and oranges.
So Governor Abbott doesn't believe in you guys can get it done anyways if he lets you guys vote on it. That's how much we're coming in 2026. It's like he just tries to push it through. Mm-hmm. And so that to me should be the illegal part.
Is my understanding of the California thing that's done?
Yes.
And so if the Supreme Court decides to stick with the ruling of the lower court and the Texas maps remain the ones that we made in 2021, then it's less gerrymandered than, so it comes out Democrats win in the long run.
Yep.
Even more grand.
Because it doesn't undo California, unless there was some discussion on some of these podcasts I was listening to of could they make a decision also about the California maps? And they are the Supreme Court, so I guess they could. But I don't know. And there has been a challenge in California as well. There's a Republican that is challenging the California maps as well.
Gotcha. I mean, it would be wild, but maybe the silver lining of it could be is that a Supreme Court ruling is that there can never be mid-census redistricting. And then we all have to stick to a logical plan.
Timeline.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that has been proposed as well. So I think that would be
Because that
But
could be a
yeah.
win, because then Tim O'Hare couldn't get away with his stuff either.
exactly.
Okay, maybe I see what you're cooking. Speaking of Tim O'Hare, though, and if we actually flip Commissioners Court in 2026, would y'all be pro the commissioners flipping it back to the old consensus and like take away our racial gerrymander we went through? Like, let's say.
But if we won, why would we need to go redo the maps?
I was just asking.
It would still affect 2028, but then in 2030, you just make new maps again.
So you just weren't worried about it?
So
I think you stick to, I mean, that's the criticism that has happened, is that if they do it, then, you're just as wrong. If you think doing it is wrong.
You're just redoing it to get back to the U.S. data track.
Back to a sane
process.
process.
Like, you're not like changing.
Yeah.
You're not changing it for your benefit. You're just, because Democrats have to be good people, we are just undoing the thing that you get away with as white people.
I think that just adds more chaos, because then if you elect people into those seats as they're drawn now, and then you go back and take them back to the way they were in 2021,
depending on
some of
where
those
they
people
live,
might
they
not
might-
live in the district that they just ran for.
Yeah,
Chaos
it really
is the apt word for this, for sure.
Well, the next story is you guys as well. While you guys do this story, I'm going to be reading and getting prepared for short story number 3. So you guys go right ahead and dive in.
Of course, Wesley and I cannot go an episode without touching on transportation and safety stories here in Fort Worth. So the first article is free parking in downtown Fort Worth garages will be in your rear view mirror next year.
I had this in our wins and losses at first as a win for Ann. There's no one who has a better rant locked and loaded ready to go about how free parking doesn't exist.
Yes, I shared on the comment thread when this article was posted on social media that there's no such thing as free parking, because I wanted everyone to understand that the downtown TIF has been paying for these garages to provide free parking for many, many, many years, and
Someone's
asked the
always paying for
question
it.
about how much money did we think had gone into this free parking over all the years. And I literally know that it's in the millions of dollars, because back in 2017, I think it was 16 maybe, some of these contracts were up. I was on the council and I was serving on the TIF board, and we were contemplating not continuing with it. And you would have thought the world was coming to an end. Mm-hmm. There were people that just thought downtown would dry up like a leaf and blow away if we didn't have free parking in downtown Fort Worth.
I'm curious. You said millions of dollars. Ballpark. 2 million? 20 million?
Oh,
200
no, it's
million?
more than 2. I know that. I mean, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that I think they were paying the garages, because the garages were, there was some contemplation about whether these were city garages. These were mostly owned by other entities. So Tarrant County had a garage. Some of the businesses downtown have garages. The Bass Towers downtown have garages. 777 Main has garages, and many of those had contracts with the TIF to provide that parking nights and weekends free to residents, but they were getting paid for it.
So this is tax dollars that downtown was paying to just immediately hand over to a privately owned
And it was
garage.
tax dollars collected from entities in downtown.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a public improvement or a TIF district for the immediate area. Mm-hmm. My beef was that I just didn't think that was the highest and best use of those dollars, that we could do other things that would be beneficial to the businesses downtown, that would not, people would still come downtown. When you go downtown on a weekend, how many times have you seen people try to put money in meters on the weekends? And they don't know that it's free on the weekends, because any other major city you go to, you got to look at the sign and figure out what you need to pay to park in a downtown area. So I tried to convince the other people on the TIF board by giving them a 700-page book by Donald Shoup about how there's no such thing as free parking. And I think I did convince a few people.
It took that many pages to tell us that? Holy smokes.
I will confess, I did not ever read his whole book. I just read synopsises and summaries and agreed with the premise.
Yeah.
But I think I convinced a few people.
Yeah, I have that book. It has a lot of stories about how different cities deal with it, and what kind of parking works, what doesn't. It's more interesting than you might
He's
think.
the parking guru.
Yeah.
He unfortunately passed recently, so he's no longer with us. But I think his parking reform is continuing to gain traction and be adopted in many cities across the country.
Okay, so along these transportation safety stories, we have one that infuriated me when I saw this.
This is all
It
not
says,
good.
highway collision injures Buddhist monks from Fort Worth on 2,300-mile walk for peace. They had just started it like a week or two ago, starting down at the southern border and walking all the way to the northern border. That's my understanding. They didn't even make it through Houston.
They didn't make it out of Texas.
Yep. But like Houston, that's so close to the beginning of their walk, and they were hit by a truck. So they were walking, and an escort vehicle was driving alongside them, trying to ensure their safety, and a big ass truck crashed into their escort vehicle that pushed it into them, and they're in the hospital right now with serious leg injuries. I'm like, cars are the problem. How many times do I have to say it? We can't even do a walk for peace without cars enacting their death toll. I just thought that needed to be said out loud. And then our next story along the same route is Bedford plans to remove student artwork from crosswalks to comply with Abbott's roadway directive. This pissed me off too. Yeah. This is school kids that are trying to ensure they don't get run over by cars while walking to school, and they painted on the ground this beautiful mural to help draw attention to it, because that is something that pisses me off so much about this Abbott stuff, is that when you make crosswalks artwork, that visual interest just instinctively, naturally causes people to slow down. It makes them safer.
This is what authoritarians do, though.
Mm-hmm. They don't give a fuck about safety.
They don't want art. They don't want expression. They don't want our kids to think. That's why they can't read books either.
And because they're making the argument that they're doing this for safety reasons, they're making all of it go away. So in the beginning, it was definitely targeted to LGBTQ installations. Yep. And we haven't even been able to get one of those installed here in Fort Worth, which is really
very sad.
Many years of advocating for trying to get that done. But because they are trying to claim that this is for safety, which to Wesley's point is nonsense, they have to just say all of it needs to go. And so even that was championed by school children, was done in a community. We have an intersection at Race and Sylvania where there's embedded into the concrete an artistic installation that was a contest when we were doing the Race Street redevelopment. And that's embedded into the concrete. So we're not talking about just scrubbing off some paint. We're talking about taking away a layer of the road. This is not the highest and best use of our tax dollars, people. It is absolutely not. It's moronic behavior.
Alrighty, so now we're moving into short story number 3. And short story number 3 is that the trustees for Fort Worth ISD's school board is fighting against the state takeover. I think this is if we didn't make it a short story, it would have totally been a win, because they're actually standing up for something. I think all through the TEA takeover, they've been really quiet. The lawyers have been telling them to stay quiet. They haven't really been saying anything or advocating. I think a lot of families have been concerned what's going on. You saw that with the 3 TEA meetings having tons of participation. And so I'm just finally glad that the school board is standing up and actually being local leaders and fighting the takeover. And so their reasons is supposedly that they want a more greater review. The school that they were worried about is a school that no longer exists.
Well, and also I heard that it was a school that they had tried to close previously, and that TEA was the block to closing it prior.
The vote was 7-1, with trustee Kevin Lynch was the sole dissenter. He did not immediately respond to a request or comment. If it ever makes sense, I would love someone from the school board, Roxanne Martinez, on the pod. That'd be awesome. That'd be really cool to hear what's going on there. But Morath took control of Fort Worth ISD on October 23rd. And I think we've talked about their new kind of conservator being kind of a punitive educator. I'm just blown away how our mayor is seen as an education mayor, and the lack of advocacy in education at the state level,
for local leadership too.
Yeah, for local leadership, for funding. It's another example of how why it's disgraceful that I'll go on a PR tour or I'll do an annual, I did right after the Fort Worth ISD state takeover. Literally T3 had their annual event, turnover, all the great work they're doing. It's the end. How about you spend that time fighting for public education, showing up, and it's
it not so bad that we have to have all these organizations trying to fix it after the fact. It's starving something and then being you are at fault for this. You're not doing a good job. And then taking it away from them.
Really, if you took all the money from nonprofits that are trying to better education and you just spent that on more
Education.
teachers, smaller classroom sizes. The problem kind of fixes itself.
Yeah. So it's yeah, I mean, there's not much in the story, but I think it's a great step in the sense of like these are the kind of things our local leaders need to be doing.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think it's important that people know this happened because there was a lot of turnout at those meetings and people were very frustrated because there weren't a lot of answers given at those meetings. And now this is something that the trustees have done to try to ask that this ruling be reviewed again. So an administrative law judge must issue a final ruling within 30 days after hearing the challenge. And then that ruling will not be able to be appealed. But that's the timeline that we're on from when they made this challenge. A decision will be made in 30 days.
So a little bit risky, but
Yeah.
quick.
Well, what else
Yeah.
can you do?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what you got to do. You got to be bolder, take a little bit more risk. I think that's kind of where we are right now. Cool. So we're going to move into wins, losses, and actions. And wins stay with education because there looks to be more fighting in education since we don't have the education mayor that we say we do that does this. 10 Commandments displays in Fort Worth ISD. Tarrant Area District must remove them according to judge's orders. Several Texas school districts, including 5 in Tarrant County, must remove 10 Commandment displays from classrooms by December 1st, a federal judge ordered Tuesday. This directly affects the Fort Worth, Arlington, Northwest, Mansfield, Azle school districts. Fort Worth ISD will comply with the requirements of the order. And what you also see here is that the order stems from a lawsuit filed September 22nd by 15 multi-faith and non-religious families. So interconnected, like coalition is where that is at, including one from Fort Worth challenging districts that had begun installing or preparing to install the posters despite an earlier ruling declaring the law unconstitutional. So we will continue to see what happens here. The law, which was brought forward by State Sen. Phil King from Weatherford, requires all
That's
Texas.
my representative.
He is?
Yes, he is.
Wow. That gerrymander, right? We get all
There
the way out
it
to
is, all
Weatherford.
the way out to Parker County.
Yes. So, and that also shows that we're the epicenter of extremism and Christian nationalism.
Well, another win is we all got to go see Brandy Waller Pace's show at Keith House on
Yes.
Friday. That was a good time.
That
It
was a good time.
fantastic.
Keith House is such a great place to James Terrell art installation. I highly recommend going to check it out every at sunrise and sunset. I forget their hours are kind of weird.
There's a schedule on their website, and you can buy the tickets ahead of time. They always have a price and then a pay what you can option as well. And then you can also donate additionally in order to cover the price of tickets for people who pay what they can.
Yeah, but if you need a nice meditative experience, I'd recommend it. And the acoustics were nice for that show. It was Brandy and
Shanice Richards.
Yes, playing American roots music. So if you don't already know Brandy, she puts on the Fort Worth African American Roots Music Festival, which is one of the best music festivals in town. So we got a little taste of that.
Yeah, it was great.
And we all got surprised by EJ becoming a board member for her organization.
Yeah, I was. I could have swore they said Wesley. So, but that was cool
The
too.
two of you were sitting
Yeah,
next
yeah.
to each other going, you.
Yeah. But really looking forward to that too. I mean, like you said, to me, it's some of the best work happening. It's authentic. It's real. It's not co-opted by like exploitation and capitalism trying to over Instagram the algorithm so it's viral. Like it's just
And it's happening right here in Fort Worth.
it's just
We should all be very
organic,
proud of
genuine,
that.
high in tune people with their craft. And when you can watch masters perform, it's great. I mean, the person last year, like I forget who he was with when he made a song. He's like, "Oh, I bought this banjo from." I'm gonna miss it. Who's the Asian violinist guy?
Yo-Yo Ma.
Yo-Yo Ma. He's like, "Oh, I got this banjo with Yo-Yo Ma, you know, like, and we made sure that the chords are right. I haven't played this in public, but I'm gonna play it for you all." Like that was like that's the kind of stuff that's happening with Brandy. So
That's dope.
it was awesome. It was awesome.
Well,
Good call.
Speaking of good art, we all saw each other last night as well at Natalia Margarita's art show at the pool.
Yeah, it's amazing. She's been working on a doctoral program at TCU, and this was the culmination of that, where she's done some research with Latina artists, and they had all of their artwork displayed there. And so it was a learning experience and a visual arts experience as well. It was fantastic, and great group of people in the room.
It's just cool to see Fort Worth having some cool stuff. Another one right after the Natalia event, we went to The second, maybe third, Puerto Rican like marketplace right by Boca. So the Italian Boca restaurant, I guess the owner is half Italian, half Puerto Rican. But so there's been like a Puerto Rican kind of market there. 10 to 12 tables, vendors, but you can get arroz con gandules, you can get Guinepas, like it was a bunch of cool stuff happening, then like merch and stuff, and then like Puerto Rican coffee. So that was cool. And
we're gonna have
people
to start getting
music.
better at finding out about these things ahead of time and like sharing it in these are things you can do segment of our show, because I know the FOMO is real.
Well, I think the way to do that is make sure you follow us on Instagram. So we're always posting, the transit mixer or what to do around, like if we see something, we're sharing it early. So if we don't get on the actions, then we can make it happen. So speaking of, now we're moving to losses. We unfortunately have a high list of those. You want to bring it to us?
Well, we knew this was coming. We knew that I counted it as a win when Beau French stepped down as county chair for
Yeah, you still say Beau's name and win way too many times.
That's true. I should stop doing that. Just him being gone, I think, is a good thing. But we knew that meant he would be replaced. And the person they replaced him with, oh man, what a loss. This is the attorney who was at the center of the Keller ISD drama. And this is who they want leading the Tarrant County Republican Party.
And the drama of trying to split Keller
ISD.
from the haves and have-nots.
Yep.
Going back to segregation.
Yep. And they're trying to couch it as that they did this great thing because they had 4 people nominated for this role. And the first vote, not one person got enough to be outright the winner. And instead of continuing to vote like this in the normal process, the 3 others just acquiesced and said, okay, we'll go with him because he did get the most votes. And they're like, this is a sign of unity, that we're working together and we're just this great party of unity.
Was Marshall Hobbs one of those 4?
Yes, he was.
Very high quality.
He was
level
4th.
Group.
That's more a sign that no one cared enough.
Yeah.
Weird.
Well, we're going to also move into the loss around high demand forces Tarrant County rental assistant program to close application after 4 hours. This to me is just like so disappointing because you think about all the defunding that has been taken from the county, and all they continue to brag.
Too.
Yeah, and all they do is continue to brag is, look how lower. Like they're dismantling our systems.
Yeah. They're like, look how much money we saved. Meanwhile, people are
not being
homeless.
able to pay rent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just made sure to add this to the losses because we've talked about this before, about how when County Commissioners Court voted to end their rental assistance programs and pawn it off on a nonprofit that was not equipped to handle this volume so suddenly, we were like, this is not how government should work. And then sure as day, here's what happened.
Yeah, it shows that Tarrant County funded rental and utilities program was so high, the application portal had to close 4 hours after opening. Last month's Fort Worth Center for Transforming Lives won a $2.3 million contract with the county to administer the community outreach funds. After opening on November 3rd, 170 applications flooded in. And so the CEO, Carol Klosik, said during an open house about the program Tuesday night at the center of South Riverside Drive campus, people were here at 7:30 in the morning waiting for us to open the doors. We hadn't even advertised the program yet. The staff closed their portal to work through the applications, and $45,000 was dispersed in 11 days, Klosik said.
Yeah, and this is by no means saying anything negative about the Center for Transforming Lives, because they have an incredible model and they have done incredible work, which is why I think the county wanted to foist this all off on them instead of trying to do it themselves. But there is so much need, and the need is not going to be solved with the programs like this. The need is going to be solved by systemic change.
Yes, because just throwing money at the problem isn't the solution either. Like a systemic solution makes it so you don't even have to throw money at it.
And this is what, like, you know, wrapping a bow on the name of the episode, this is what Mayor Parker and Republicans do. It's like, let's not advocate for the laws and policies that actually will change systems and make people's lives better. But hey, look at this cool nonprofit, you know, transforming lives. Let's sit on a panel with them and talk all about the great work they do, and then end up looking good. And like that is like what we keep doing, and we got to stop that kind of behavior.
The problem is the high demand. And the reason that there is such a high demand is because we don't have systems in place that support people to make a living wage, to be able to afford childcare, to be able to afford transportation, to be able to afford food. We don't have systems in place that make sure that the people in our community that struggle the most have what they need to live with dignity. And therefore, they have to go through a program like this. And there's too many of them to be helped with a program like this.
Very well said. And I just want to point back to our previous episode of what does it mean to be a progressive? It's fighting for solutions to all the things that you just said.
Another example of this where politicians don't actually advocate for policies that would actually make people's lives, but then starts showcasing that they care when either private or nonprofits end up doing something about a problem. North Texas Maternal Health Accelerator was launched at TCU at $25 million. Now, this accelerator is going to do a lot of cool things, and invest in a lot of cool things. But like none of the discussion is about that, in 2021, we got stricter abortion laws in Texas. And it literally starts in this article. In 2022, Mayor Parker convened a coalition of local leaders to figure out how Tarrant County could best tackle the growing issues of maternal morbidity. You can say that with anything, with education, with homelessness, with whatever. And then they just sit on panels with people who have to go raise money from rich people or find private businesses who will invest in innovations or solutions and then say, look at me, we're solving a problem. As another example of why Fort Worth constantly thinks it's doing a good job as a city, because this facade is just a constant thing we keep doing.
And they also ignore the fact that they helped create the problem.
Exactly. And that if you guys remember when we had that sepsis story from ProPublica about the rise of women passing from sepsis that were pregnant because of the new abortion laws. So like that is like, we should be talking about that. We should be talking about how the laws impacted that. And shout out Sabrina Ball, who made some content around that on social media of like, how are we letting the mayor get away with like sitting on this little grandstanding TCU panel when we have moms dying at a higher rate because of the abortion laws that passed in 2021?
Back to systemic problems that we're not fixing on the system side of things and just trying to clean up after the fact.
And Evan Smith on the Texas Tribune article was literally pressing Mayor Parker. What about Abbott's blank? What about Abbott's tax thing? What about Abbott's thing? And does not stand up to problems, but then, goes around Fort Worth advocating and seeing community members trying to solve problems that our politicians won't actually stand up for and change.
Another loss we have here is, quote, energy for the world. North Texas leaders talk oil, gas, and growing nuclear industry at conference. How in the hell are you going to have
Was Beau French there?
I mean, Craig Goldman was.
He's running for rail commissioner.
Rare time that Craig Goldman came out of his cave. But how do you have a talk on energy production in Texas and not have it focus on renewables? We are the number one producer of renewable energy in the country, something that we should be proud of and lean into more. And instead, you just have these old money industries dooming the planet, saying that, oh, well, let's just keep doing what we're doing. Fuck that.
Yeah, and looking at the pictures, it doesn't even look like it was that exciting. Looks like a very unjoyful place to be.
Exactly. And
I think there was some quote about we can't rely on renewables.
Oh.
But
yet there are countless countries who are 100% renewable.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you can't, even if you need to have that should be the supplement. It shouldn't be the focus.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of destroying the world, Google investing $40 billion into Texas for AI and new data centers. And this is spread out around Texas, but come on. Yeah. You can guarantee there's going to be one in Fort Worth. Yeah, they're going to try at least.
It highlighted the Fort Worth last month unanimously approved an energy giant Black Mountain Power LLC request to expand its upcoming 431-acre data center in southeast Fort Worth.
Hell no.
Well, they've already approved it.
Yeah.
So,
I hate it.
The concern was raised, though, by some of our council members about please, staff, come back to us with kind of what the impacts of these are going to be, because we need to start making more informed decisions about them because of the impact on the power grid. So I guess we'll have to add that to our list of things to remind them in public comment that they said they wanted to look into further.
We have an abusive relationship with the earth.
I mean, it's true. Yes.
We do not take care of our beautiful earth. So is that the last of the losses? So actions. It looks like you're going to have to get this out sooner than later because your first action is November 25th, bud.
Yep. So on November 25th at Amphibian Stage at 6 o'clock, I'm hosting an event about the future of the Fort Worth Community Arts Center. So part of it is to get people ready to go speak at public comment in favor of restoring the Community Arts Center, but also to just strategize on this is going to be a long fight. What do we do? How we work together to make this happen? So if you want to be a part of helping reshape Fort Worth's arts ecosystem, come check out this meeting. And you can follow Support Fort Worth Art on Facebook and Instagram for more info.
Yep.
I think this is funny because Katie mentioned in our interview with her about the bond to do something in the cultural district, that there had been some discussion about having community arts centers scattered throughout the community, and that was completely ignored, which was what kind of lampooned that bond for having something happen in the cultural district. And we are still 30 years later having these same discussions and conversations.
I felt invigorated and infuriated reading that part of the article.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another big one is December 2nd's final public comment meeting of 2025, 6 p.m. Make sure you're there. And this is just going back, right? No one is trying to villainize you or call you an activist. It's the next step of our civic duty.
Yes.
You vote. You speak out the things you want to change. You get 3 minutes. You share it. You then will, right? It gets clipped. Other people might see it. You inspire others. And that is a wave and ripple effect of people realizing that together we are a web of power. So let's use it December 2nd. And you could talk about the art center. You could talk about data centers. You could talk about a lot of different things. Patrice still doesn't have an apology.
You can talk about community engagement.
You could talk about it. Yep. Community engagement. Yep. You could talk about this healthcare stuff. You could talk about education. There's public comments. There's a ton of stuff that needs voices.
Well, speaking of community and voices for the people, you can also keep an eye out for Nydia Cardenas is getting ready to do a big campaign launch and announcement. We don't have all the details yet, but if you want to support 817 folks and people who listen to community, then you can join her at her campaign launch.
Yep, that's coming. And then as well as December 14th, we're doing the 817 Gather on the second week rather than the third week. We usually do it the third Sunday, and we're doing it at 5 o'clock because we're going to do kind of like a potluck, festive potluck and hanging out. So if you want to bring food, great. If you don't, you can come and eat a lot of food. But it was a good time last time as we did have the Tadabishi family speak, which is important for everyone to be aware of that. I believe Arlington City Council got pushed back, so a lot of the things didn't happen. But look out for Arlington because the Tadabishi family will not be with their father over the holidays because he got kidnapped by ICE.
Well, and I heard yesterday, I think, that the son is in ICU right now.
Yeah. And so why this is so important of a story for us to hear is the dad took care of while Tadabishi, who has Pompe disease, and the stories that the sister-in-law was telling us at the Gather of like how while went 2 minutes without oxygen, and his face was turning purple, and to go from that Sunday to now hearing he's in the hospital, these actions of taking away his caregiver who's been in America for 30 years and is allowed to be in America because of his U.S. citizen son who relies on him for his life. I hope we figure out how to wake this story up before we're on the back end of something that we do not want to be on. So please be on the lookout for that. Okay, beautiful people, that's another episode of the 817 podcast. I hope you're enjoying your stuffing. What else do you eat? On sweet potatoes. What else do we eat? Collard greens. What do y'all eat? Turkey.
We're having spaghetti, actually.
You're having spaghetti? Oh, I haven't even made any Thanksgiving plans, but whatever you guys are doing, hopefully it's with your family. And try not to get mad at that ignorant uncle that shows up. All right. But hopefully, if you do, hopefully the 817 podcast helped you retool your language so you could kick their ass. All right. So there you have it. We'll see you on the next episode of the 817 podcast. Have a good holiday.